Good morning, I'm Tamara Shoemaker. I used to sew my own clothes. I didn't do a lot of it but I did sew a few dresses and skirts when I was in my teens and upper teens. I remember wishing at times that as I tried my hand at that particular domestic art that my clothes didn't look quite so homemade. I guess I could have sewn like a tag onto it with my name, creating my own brand, but at the same time, since I wasn't very good at sewing, that would have created maybe more embarrassment for my teenage self than I might have been willing to handle at the time. I was just no good at eyeballing my size and cutting the material accordingly, right? I also got easily frustrated with the directions for the patterns, but I had to have a pattern because of my aforementioned lack of skill at eyeballing size. So as my dubious skill with this domestic art grew, I collected quite a few patterns. And as I wasn't super organized, the pieces of those patterns kind of became a jumble of thin yellow paper in the sewing box. In Romans chapter 12, verses 1-2, Paul says, "Therefore, I urge you, brothers, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship. Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." There was at least one project that I was excited to begin that I decided to lay out, my pattern pieces for. And I found to my frustration that parts of the pattern that I'd chosen had somehow gotten mixed in with other parts from other patterns. And I wasn't skilled enough to figure out exactly what I needed. The patterns were different, and therefore the patterns made different creations. One pattern made a dress, another pattern made another dress or a skirt or something, but I, in my limited skill, could not make the various pieces of the patterns work into a single creation. So the world has a pattern. It's got a brand, so to speak. It's a demanding one, and I've realized this, especially with social media. Your social group is no longer situated or centered around several local friends that, you're in contact with on a daily basis. And maybe you have some long distance friends that you keep in touch with. But now through the power of Facebook and Instagrams and Snapchat, TikTok, we keep up with each other instantaneously several times a day or night even. And we make judgments on each other's appearance and thoughts and decisions and spiritual conditions. And there's just so much pressure to keep up appearances, patterns, brands, right? The pattern of the left, the pattern of the right. Some people have a Trump pattern. Some people have a global warming pattern. Some people have a don't tread on me pattern. Some people have a forced vaccination pattern. You take a picture of your kids without masks and you post it, and then you realize, oh, people are judging your pattern. You might have to explain your actions, so you quickly add a comment and talk about the distance between yourself and the other people around you, or about how you told your kids to hold their breath while the picture was being taken. Guilty. What a messy pattern. What a messy brand. I used to tune in for the Oscars and occasionally to the Golden Globes. I'm too busy now, and also I'm a little disgusted with the whole setup of it now. But it always makes me laugh, though, every time a reporter would stop an actor to interview him or her, and the question would inevitably crop up. Who are you wearing? Not what are you wearing? Who are you wearing? So maybe it's my grammarian brain sort of spazzing in overdrive. But I picture the clothing designers literally draping themselves over the person who has accepted their design to wear, so that the actor is literally almost wearing them. "Oh," says the actor, "this is Versace." "Oh," says the actor, "this is Dior." "Oh," says the actor, "this is Armani." And you can hear the oohs and the ahs of the reporters. They fawn over the top world-class designers, right? And the actor or actress smiles and shimmers and shines in their raiment, and they're transformed from their original state of being from when they'd woken up that morning, right? Into the gorgeous creation that they had come out in that evening, because they reflect the brand of their designer. So I wonder how many of us would say, "Oh, this is the Holy Spirit. This is Jesus. This is my Lord who clothed me when I stepped out of the old pattern that I was wearing and into his transformative power." So the Lord offers us fabric, right, that has nothing to do with this world, and his brand is different. So if you're trying to patch up your original cutout, right, with the new material, your creation is going to fail, as Jesus reminds his disciples or John's disciples, I guess it was, in Matthew chapter 9, verse 16. He says, "No one sews a patch of unshrunk cloth on an old garment, for the patch will pull away from the garment, making the tear worse." New cloth, new pattern. And every time I'd begin to sew a new dress, that first cut into the material was one that I made with bated breath. I'd painstakingly lay out the pieces onto the material piece, onto the slab of material that I had, just so. It's probably not called a slab, but whatever, that just shows my inexperience. Some pieces needed to be on a folded edge, some didn't. And if I made a single mistake in the layout, once I cut that material, there was no going back. Severed fabric just cannot be repaired afterward without leaving a scar. I'm so thankful that God holds the scissors, right? That he cuts the pattern, that he lays out his perfect design. Not only do I not have to be conformed to the world's pattern, I don't want to be conformed to it. God's patterns are perfect, and his creations are beautiful, and they are transforming. We wake up, every morning and we put on new clothes, right? And it just occurred to me, we each have the choice of what clothes we want to wear. We can grab one set of clothing or we can grab another set of clothing, but whatever clothes we wear that day will be the clothes that cover us, that others see that we are wearing, right? And I know my first thought was this, but God doesn't look at the outward appearance, he looks at the heart, right? True. But these clothes are spiritual clothes that God makes for you. They are the ones mentioned in Revelation chapter 3, verse 5. He who overcomes will, like them, be dressed in white. I will never blot out his name from the book of life, but will acknowledge his name before my Father and his angels. So these clothes are the clothes that God looks at because they are his brand, right? They're his stamp of belonging. They're the God brand. All right, hope that blessed you today, and I will see you tomorrow.